Good morning. Following on from the great talk there by Bruno. In fact, Bruno has done a lot of my talk, so I can go now. Who's afraid of the big bad wolf? So I'm Chris, as I guess the presentation said, with that fantastic Polish pronunciation of my name, which I need to speak about afterwards. I'm Chris. Work for the privacy agency. If you want to contact me, you can contact me there. And a simple question: who remembers when the internet was fun? Anybody here remember when the internet was fun? When it was a nice place where you could do really interesting things, and we didn't worry too much about privacy and people looking at our stuff? This is a map of the ARPANET. This is before the internet in 1973. That was it. That's how big the internet was in 1973. And back in the day, it was kind of fun. It was a great place to be. And now we're in the kind of situation where everything we do is registered. It's taken from the internet. This is from Mr. Robot. And you can see that Mr. Robot's address, or the address of the protagonist here is... he's talking in specific terms about where he is on the internet, where he is, and in the last slide, what's your physical address? And that's a place where he is located on a map. So we're all located like this these days. And the reason I'm talking about the bad wolf is that in lots of tales, in lots of stories, there was always this thing about the bad wolf. If you go into the forest, if you go into places, the bad wolf will get you. There's a bad wolf there. You must be very careful where you go and what you do, because the bad wolf will get you. And this, to me, is a very interesting image that was from a British newspaper. And it talks about how different generations... What was the place they were allowed to go, how far they could go when they were 8 years old. And we begin down here with the great-grandfather. When he was 8 in 1919, he could walk 6 miles to go fishing, okay? His son, Jack, he was able to walk 1 mile to the woods. The mother, Vicky, when she was 8, she was allowed to walk to the swimming pool, which was half a mile. And now the son, Ed, he's only allowed to walk on his own to the end of his street. Okay? And the reason I'm talking about that is because in kind of all of the developed countries, kids are safer now than they have ever been. But we control them much more. Okay? We're controlling where they go, what they do, who they're with. And we're controlling them in many ways. When I was a kid, I would leave the house in the morning, I would come back at lunchtime. My parents had no idea where I was. There was no ability for me to communicate with them where I was. It was just, I went out. And I could do anything. Yeah? And we have taken that ability away from kids. We have taken that ability away from kids now. And I think one of the reasons for that is something that we call in English fear, uncertainty, and doubt. Okay? We have this obsession with wanting to know. We're very worried all the time about where our kids are and what they're doing and the bad things that can happen to them. Okay? And we're using technology to look at that. Advancements in tracking technology are bringing comfort to parents, from the Huffington Post. But what's actually happening? We have the spy phone. This is a company, a US company, that parents buy a phone and they put tracking devices into the phone and they follow their kids throughout the day. They look at what their kids are doing, who they're communicating with. Okay? So we are taking away from kids the ability to communicate to explore their own communication. We're taking that away. We're tracking them. I mean, people are actually giving their kids phones and they're investigating and spying on their kids all the time. Now, I have a theory about this. This is a very famous painting which shows kids taking over a village and playing and doing everything. And the parents, the adults, are kind of up there in the building looking down. What's happening? What's happening? And I think we're kind of like this. We resent what our kids are doing. We think the kids are still enjoying all of these kind of free things, which as parents, which as adults, we no longer can do. And we kind of find that strange. Yep. So what I believe we're doing with kids and what we've been doing in the kind of safer internet field, we've been trying to protect kids. We've been trying to find a way in which we can ensure that our kids don't come to harm. But I think we've got to a stage now when what we're doing is actually, we are dealing with our kids, we are trying to prevent bad things happening to them, but we are restricting their communication, we're restricting their access, we're restricting their ability to explore who they are. And we're doing this in the kind of sense of this idea that many men and judges have when they look at women and they say that if a woman is wearing a short skirt, or if a woman goes out in the evening and she has something to drink and then she deserves or she is provoking rape. Okay? And what we've been doing with kids is we're doing this as well. Instead of looking at the platforms, at the things that the internet, the things that the kids are using on the internet and what they do and why they create the situation in which kids are in danger, we're restricting kids' behavior. We're trying to get them to communicate in a certain way. We're saying, don't do this. If you do this, this bad thing will happen. It's like going to the woods and the bad wolf is there, you know? And we're increasingly, we're kind of trying to control kids' activities and control what kids are doing due to this reason. Bad things will happen to you if you behave in this way. And that's a kind of, for me, that's a very, very strange proposition. It's the bad wolf. So, back a long time ago, Tim Berners-Lee developed the World Wide Web. And in the London Olympics, Tim Berners-Lee was on the stage and he wrote a message and it said, "This is for everyone." Okay, this is for everyone. Now, when the web was first developed, a British newspaper said, "Worldwide what? Computer web to change billions of lives?" Yeah, right. That's not going to happen. Yeah, that was the attitude back in the day, but it did happen. Now, if Tim Berners-Lee had taken his protocol for the World Wide Web and made it private, made it intellectual property that belonged to him, we would not be here today having this debate and this discussion, okay? He could very easily have said, "I've invented this protocol, I've discovered this protocol, it belongs to me, or it belongs to CERN," which was where he was working at the time, "and I will exploit this for financial gain." But he said, no, this is for everyone. He was a scientist, he wanted to give this, he's a computer engineer, and he had discovered something, he'd created something which he thought would be of incredible benefit to the whole human race. Yeah. So he didn't do that. And now we're in this situation. We're in this situation where the evil witch is giving the poisoned apple, in this case, to Snow White. This is a painting from San Francisco, where else would it be, which I think encapsulates the world we're in right now. It's a beautiful object, it's fantastic, it offers fantastic things, but it also offers great problems. So I'm going to talk about the scenario we're in today. Now, For everything that we know about the internet, and for everything we know about kids and everything, we're still in a situation where it's practically impossible to identify yourself correctly on the internet. This is Madonna. And Madonna was waiting for a Federal Express package for a week, and she's pretty pissed off. You know, but she could not prove to Federal Express that she was Madonna until she went on Twitter and she put this tweet out, and then Federal Express got in touch with her very quickly because millions of people retweeted this. Yeah? And it's like, hey, I'm Madonna, you know, I'm a famous person. We're in a situation, following on from what Bruno said, where we have objects in our house, for example, the smart vacuum cleaner, which is mapping our house. And, as Bruno said, they're producing all of this data, and what's going to happen with that data? Well, maybe they're going to sell that data. Maybe they're going to sell the maps of your house to companies that would like to use that information for many things. Simple things like looking at a weather app. The weather app is looking at what you're doing, even when you've turned the sharing off, because it's a free app, and free apps make their money somehow. Free apps usually make their money by, as Bruno said, taking your data. I love this. The Amazon Echo, a device that you have at home. And as the parrot says, I learned how to speak. I learned how to, the name of the Echo, and I could place an order because it just responds to your voice. And we're getting to the stage now where we're having objects in our houses that we don't know if they're always listening. And so if you go to visit somebody now in their house, you may be being recorded or listened to without your knowledge. So a simple way of doing that is you go to somebody's house and you say, hey, Alexa, buy this, order this, and then you discover if you have an object in the house. The Internet of Things that Bruno mentioned, or the Internet of Shit, as lots of people call it. They sell you an object, in this case a $400 juicer, something that makes juice, but was controlled over the internet, and then the company decides, we don't do it anymore. You spent 400 euros and you have a stupid object sitting in your kitchen which no longer functions. Recognition. We tag people, we put things, there are algorithms that are looking at things all the time. So this is my favorite example. This is Lois Lane looking at her Facebook or something similar, and there's a picture of Superman. I never understood why Superman could be not recognized just because he takes off his glasses. I take off my glasses, I can't see anything. But people kind of still recognize me. But in this case, he becomes Superman, no? But again, the facial recognition, this is what is going to happen with facial recognition algorithms. Superman will be discovered because of his facial characteristics. And just taking off glasses is not going to work. And one of my favorites, the world's first hacking app for sex toys. Take remote control of somebody's erotic pleasure without them knowing, by FlexiFlesh. This was actually, sorry, somebody wanted to take a picture, I'll put it back. This was actually an April Fool's. We have this thing on the 1st of April, we make jokes, and if you look down here, it says JavaScript pop-up April Fool. This was a joke on April Fool, but it actually took you to this. Oh, we can no longer do this, but hey, while you're here, sign up for our other products. And what these products are spying applications, okay? We'll come back to that. And this is how they advertise themselves. It's actually a company called FlexiSpy. Many spouses cheat. They all use cell phones. So the idea behind this is you take this company's product and you put it on your partner's phone, and then you can bug them, you can follow them to see if they are cheating on you. Okay? So this is where we're at. And it's not just companies. The Privacy International report that shows that 21 European countries are retaining personal data. So we always have these things from the EU, for example. We're going to have the GDPR. We're going to have all of these new legislation. But the countries are already still illegally retaining our data. We all know there are lots of viruses and things that are happening. And as we move on, the companies that are interested in this data are investigating everything, any way that they can to be able to get into our information. Dolphins inspire ultrasonic attacks. Okay, so the people are developing things that we can't even hear, but they will still be taking our data. And they're looking at every way they can do that, taking the example of dolphins in this case. When you go to the movies, you can be analyzed. Disney Research have been doing facial recognition on people in cinemas to look at the emotions that the people have when they're watching a movie. Okay? So what's going to happen with that? They're then going to take factors of that movie and say, in this movie, this happened, so if we do the similar thing, then people will respond like this. This came out about a month ago. I have been trying to contact them. I've been sending them tweets. I've been saying, hey, I just have one question for you. Your study is very interesting. Did you ask for permission from all of the people in the room to be scanned and analyzed in this way? Clearly they did not, because they're not going to get real emotions if they do that. Because if you know that you're being filmed, if you know that you're being analyzed, you're going to react in a different way. So they probably did not do that. But that means that when you go to the movies, you can be being analyzed. And it continues. All these things continue. This is my favorite thing about the recent hacks. Hacks are affecting shipping companies. And this is a great example. Our chicken wings and cheesy crust are out of stock due to a recent cyber attack. It's fantastic. Can you imagine going into your local food restaurant and they tell you, oh, we can't give you your food because of a cyber attack? This is the world we're living in. It's amazing because shipping is being affected. The last big virus affected shipping companies. Shipping companies are being attacked all the time. And the way supply chains work is that if these things go down, we cannot get our chicken wings and our crusty, whatever it is, cheesy crust. Fantastic. This is the world we're in. And Pernille, maybe some of you people here know her. She's spoken at many of these conferences. She was at a conference and she tweeted this. Stop calling people consumers. Everything we do is like looking at us from a perspective of what we consume. Yes? What we can offer. What is a monetary value on what we are as people. Yeah? And that's what a lot of this spying and this stuff is about. Bruno mentioned some of the great things about what can be done with artificial intelligence in the health system. But Google, fantastic company that is unable to tell us how much women who work in the company earn, even though they can do absolutely everything else. When they were given access to medical data in the UK, they took everything because that's what they do. And more recently, we're getting into these applications of artificial intelligence. Recently, 2 weeks ago, a guy, this Michael Kosinski, has released a study about how artificial intelligence can recognize sexual orientation from your face. This is like phrenology from Victorian times when people would say, we can recognize if a person is a criminal because they have a big forehead. Yeah, the shape of their head shows that they're a criminal. But this is what we're doing with artificial intelligence. Advances in AI are used to spot signs of sexuality. And he also said, following up from this, that using artificial intelligence and looking at your face, he will be able to tell what your political beliefs are. Okay? So artificial intelligence is the new... In cowboy movies, there's always the guy that comes to town and sells a jar of something which will restore your hair or make you feel fantastic. And artificial intelligence is becoming the new this. This is some of his other work. A terrorist. Look at that guy in the first picture. That's me. I am a terrorist, quite clearly, because I wear a cap and a beard, and I'm aggressive, active, thrill-seeking, etc. So, looking at facial recognition, they can tell that a terrorist is this. But what's happening is every day we're getting more and more breaches. Equifax is a company in the United States that is charged with storing our data, storing data in a very safe way so that other organizations can use it. And what happened? They got hacked. And they leaked 147 million accounts, including the social security number of all of those people. And why is this happening? Because of big data. The more big data, the more data companies have, the more things that will leak. And it will leak and it will continue to leak, because the point is, as Quinn Norton said, let's be clear about your data and companies keeping it. Your data is already there and is going to be leaked. When there is a leak, it's when we discover which companies have our data. Until then, we don't know. When there's a leak, we discover which companies have that. The Democratic Party in the United States are using tracking to follow you around the internet because they want to get to you, etc., etc. And this is the world we live in. You can sit in an airport and the Burger King will tell you, hey, sign up for our app, and that's much easier than getting off your ass and just walking down to the back of the room. And you give the data instead of just getting off your ass and going down and getting your burger, because it's just more convenient. And now we're entering the age of facial scanning and recognition. This guy knows a lot. He knows a lot about forensics, and he knows a lot about biometrics. If you look at the way that guy is holding the phone, you know that he knows that he's not going to give away his fingerprints, okay? Because biometrics are really important. That guy knows. And more recently, we have things that, that companies are exploiting the objects we have in our houses. Last week, South Park had a device, an episode which switched on the device you had in your house and interacted with that, okay? And of course, we have politicians that say things like, oh, the laws of Australia are more important than the laws of mathematics. So, you know, this guy does not know what he's talking about, because laws of mathematics are more important than specific things. So let me just go through a very quick example of something's bad. Another day, another reason for Facebook to take a flying leap into the fucking sun. People are pissed off. Why? Because Facebook has advertisements which allow you to reach Jew haters, okay? You can look at demographics on Facebook such as Jew hater, okay, or how to burn Jews, and you can put advertisements to those people. And Facebook say, oh, well, it was just the algorithm. Yeah. And the person that originally did this actually received this mail asking her to buy an ad to promote her article, which was exposing the thing about Jew haters, because that's what Facebook do, that's what companies do. They make money off our data. But there's certain things you can't do on Facebook. This woman has a book which she can't promote on Facebook because uterus is in the title, and uterus is a word that you can't use on Facebook. And the great thing is we're in this situation. The algorithm did it is the new version of the dog ate my homework. As teachers in the room will know that kids come up with fantastic excuses of why they did not do their homework. And now what we're saying is the algorithm did it. The algorithm is the reason why this happened. It's not me, it's not us, it's the algorithm. But what's happening with this is, as Zainab Tufekci says, they are building the infrastructure of authoritarianism. A few years ago, I co-founded a project called the Choke Point Project, and we needed to get some funding, so we needed a name for the foundation. And we took the name of the Rudy Bloomgarten Foundation. If you look at the dates of Rudy Bloomgarten's birth and death, you probably have some idea what happened. He died in 1943, clearly. And the reason he died was because when the Nazis moved into Amsterdam, there was a census. And on the census, they said where every Jew lived in the city of Amsterdam. Okay, the dark spots represent, I'm sure Bruno can translate that better, right? That they represent 10 Jews. So when the Nazis moved into Amsterdam, they could very easily just take this map and they could just find where the Jews were, and they could round them up and kill them very quickly. So Rudy Bloomgarten and his colleagues, they went to the census and they burnt down the census building, and he was later executed a week later. So the point is, this is what happens with our big data. We hear many things about big data. Big data is a fantastic thing. This is what happens. Don't believe that things won't change, because they will, and if somebody has that data, that's what's going to happen. A quick image, that's my dad. It was his 95th birthday, but when I was a kid, that's what I used to see of my dad practically all the time. He was a mechanic and he spent all of his time under cars, which now he could not do because we are not allowed to actually use the objects we purchase. We can't do anything with them. People that buy a $30,000 or $100,000 tractor are not allowed to work on them. They have to download things from the Ukraine to be able to adapt their tractors. This happens with every device we have. It happens with cars. And now Tesla, as Bruno mentioned, 2 weeks ago in the case of the hurricane, they extended the battery life and the range of all of their cars. So Tesla allowed you to live. But if they didn't want to do that, you died. Perhaps, potentially. That's the power the companies have. I'll just go through this quickly. This is Google trying to find Sarah Connor. So we don't want to do that. And the problem is that everything is now being recorded. So even if we have legislation which says that children today, their things cannot be treated in a way, in a commercial way. In the future, because everything is being recorded, then companies can still go back and do things about them. And we're giving this message: don't trust people in the cyber world. And this is why we can't have nice things on the internet. And we actually like this. We like this guy with cutting the grass in his house while there's the tornado happening. That's where we're at. And the future, I'll just go through quickly. Moving on. Okay, we're in a situation like this, where objects in our houses are going to hold us to ransom for everything that we do. And George Orwell in 1984 said, if you imagine the future, it's a boot stamping on a face forever. I imagine the future, this guy being the president of the United States, and everybody's going to be sitting there with their VR applications on, just going, yeah, this is fantastic. And this is what I call the Bad Wolf Corporation. So do we shut down everything? No, we try to do things. Let's Encrypt has changed a lot of things on the internet. It's made it safer for everybody. WhatsApp put in encryption. We could do that. You can, we don't have time to explain this. People are researching how, instead of sharing your data, that people are taking your sensitive data, they can actually control it themselves. People are working on these things. News magazines, Vogue magazine is now featuring women that are working in cybersecurity. That's a great thing. And you can do many things about that. I'd just like to say the last point, Quinn Norton, software is a long con. You, the person reading this, whether you work in media or tech, whatever, you need to learn how they work and start demanding they work better for you. Not how to write code. Yes, okay, just let me finish this slide. Stop asking what the Russians are doing to our voting machines and ask why our voting machines are terrible. Stop asking who is behind viruses and ransomware and ask why corporations and organizations don't patch it. Don't ask who took the site down, ask why the site was there with all the vulnerabilities. Start asking lawmakers why you give up your rights when you touch a computer. Don't ask who stole the personal data or what they can do with it, but ask why it was kept in the first place, because it's not necessary to keep that data. It's not necessary. We are asking kids, we are making kids change their forms of behavior and the way they communicate, and what we're not doing is challenging companies and corporations and governments to change how the internet actually works, because it's not necessary to keep all of that data to use the internet. So we have a choice. We can try and make those people change, or we can tell our kids that the bad wolf is out there, that the bad wolf will get them if they don't behave in a certain way. I think we should be letting our kids use the internet, letting our kids enjoy the internet, using it for the cool things, instead of trying to change their behavior. And we should be focusing on trying to get the internet itself and the corporations and the governments and people behind it to make the internet, as Tim Berners-Lee said, this is for everyone. Something that everyone can use, and it's not just for corporations and people that want to make money off it. It doesn't need to be like that. Okay? The internet can work for everybody, not just for these corporations. Thank you.